Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com, daily camp nuggets filed to ESPN.com, as well as multiple stories over the last couple weeks. It's been a busy few weeks, folks. And also keep in mind, the John Keim Report is presented by AAA. Another sponsor, Huel, they're back. You know that I enjoy that when I'm on the go and it's a hectic morning. I like drinking Huel, 40 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals. The favorites for me, strawberry banana and chocolate. So if you can go to huel.com, huel.com. If you're a new customer, you get 15% off. You got to see the terms and conditions, but skip the stress, not the nutrition. Huel.com using my code word Keim, Keim. There you go. Let's get to some practice report stuff. Remember, the Commanders are going to New England this week. They leave on Tuesday, so there'll be no access on Tuesday. Go up to New England Tuesday, joint practice with the Patriots on Wednesday. Then they have the preseason game Friday, and we'll be doing a report from New England on the joint practice. We'll not be at the game, but we'll wrap it up after the game, of course, and then have another podcast out on Thursday. So to get you ready for that preseason game for sure. Injuries will be something to watch here. Who's available, who's not. I do not expect these starters to really play in that game. They're going to get a lot of work in the joint practices. That's what these sessions are for. That's why they're invaluable. And then you get to the preseason game, a lot of 2s and 3s there, folks. So like the quarterback battle, you're going to get a lot of Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson throughout the preseason. Like I would be surprised if Mariota plays and if Jaden Daniels plays more than 1, maybe 2 series in the second game. As far as injury updates, so the guys who are missing today, Brandon Coleman talked to you about it the other day, don't have an update on him. Noah Brown, not out there today. Jordan McGee, not out there today. Marcus Mariota, nope. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, nope. Mikey Samuel, nope. So we'll get an update on all these guys. Dan Quinn said he'd give it to us on Wednesday about who's going to participate Wednesday. And then in the game, that's when we'll get it for sure. And then also, the other thing he reiterated today is that Sam Cosmi has not been ruled out for the opener. I would say take a deep breath with that one. I don't know that it means he's going to be ready. I don't think it does. I think it just means he hasn't been ruled out. I think we'll get to that point soon. It would be asking a lot for him to get back for that game. But the good thing is that he hasn't been ruled out, which means he's hitting his markers. And they've said that all along, but the fact that he's still on that pace to where they can't say that is a good sign for when he eventually does return. I think they've always felt it would be a little bit more sooner than later for sure. So let's get to practice. So a couple things today. There was no Terry McLaurin show after practice, no coming out and signing autographs. Adam Peters did sign autographs, and Adam Peters, there was one fan when he was signing kept yelling, give him the check or something, get that checkbook or whatever it was. And so I don't know that Peters even heard it. I'm sure he might have. I'm sure it's not the first time. But keep in mind when people keep kind of targeting him, this is an organizational decision here. Like they are the owner, the front office, they're in unison on this. So people blaming one guy, like this is an organizational decision as to where they see Terry McLaurin's value. And I do think anyway, I think that's important to know. And whether you agree with them or not, it's not just one person. It is their front office. It is Josh Harris, and they give him all the information, the analytics about why they're at where they're at with the offer. And so there you go. I still would be surprised if that first number for McLaurin starts with a 3 from any offer they give him eventually, whatever gets done. The only way it would start with a 3 is if there's a heavily loaded third year and he doesn't see it. And then it just boosts the average. But the reality isn't that. That's why guaranteed money in these situations is always, 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 always the key. So pay attention to that more. Anyways, let's get to the practice field. Looking for clues for who's going to make the roster. I've talked about a few of these guys. Colson Yankoff, I've talked about him, continues to work with starters on special teams units. That's a good sign for him. He runs well. I think you could use another guy who like a tight end, big guy who can run. That's what he does. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt and Carlin Vigors, who was the undrafted guy. So you're talking about 7th and undrafted. they're running mostly with the twos on special teams, but they're getting good. Both of them get good work during practice. Now, I'd say with starters, but like these guys rotate a lot of guys, and they rotate on purpose because they want to see some of these guys against the higher end talent, right? To see what is it they can do with Krosky Merritt. We're really not going to see all that he can do until the games begin. So he's a guy to absolutely watch for Friday. Figures you can get a good sense of. And I think he's done a nice job in camp. I've talked about him. To me, he's been the best of the undrafteds because I think he keeps getting put in more situations against, good competition, good length, good size. I know they liked him before the draft. Whether that means he makes the roster or not, I don't know. I do know Joe Witt, the defensive coordinator, was asked about the corner group today and just, the depth there. And one of the names he brought up was Carlin Figures. Of all the guys, of course, the other ones were all the guys that you would expect, Igbenogany, Amos, Jones, et cetera, like all those guys, the guys who are going to be on the roster. And then the other name he dropped was Vigor. So just see where he progresses throughout the spring as I drop a piece of paper here. So anyway, I like to watch these drills. Today I was watching a lot of the defensive line drills. A couple things jumped out. Just watching, they'd have the D line come out of a chute and go explode into a blocking pad. And the whole purpose of the drill is to keep your head up and then shedding the blocker. So watching it, like, for example, Cleveland Farrell comes up. The one thing that I think it was Daryl Tapp, I think that's who it was, just reminded him, keep your head up. You've got to keep your head up. And you watch guys do it. Watch when you're watching it, see how guys are doing it. That Von Miller, of course, does very well with that. The way he sheds does pretty well with that. There may be a reason why he's lasted in this league a long time. So, and I'm going to have more on him in a little bit later. You also see you see the defensive lineman working with Ryan Kerrigan. The whole purpose of this one was to work on counter moves. So Kerrigan will give him a look and they got to counter that move, and they'll go over some things before you see him, talk to him about it. And then they go over it. And that's one of the things they've been doing a lot. I think it's really good to have a guy like Kerrigan here in that role as a pass rush guy. This is what he does well. It's what he excelled at. And he's good at telling them why he did things. He was never the most vocal guy, but he's always good with the information he had. And he could tell you all that. And that's one of the things that's good to see for him, having him here for sure. Then I'm watching like the defensive backs. And they were doing this little ball drill where the coach is kind of like, you have the defensive back kind of mirroring the coach, but he's throwing a little ball out there. So it's reacting to movement and but keeping your head and, keeping your body square, et cetera. So just a couple seconds doing it, but another little interesting tidbit to watch. And then watching on Marshon Lattimore and you're trying to watch to see how is he moving, because one of the things he said in the spring is that he felt like he was moving better than he has been. And I was talking to someone else, I'm talking to somebody about him. Joe Witt talked about him in the press conference, but I was talking to a coach after practice about him. He's just like, there's sometimes he's latching on in these crossing patterns. Like that's where they see it, latching on the crossing routes. And then just like somebody's like, they feel he's back to who he is. That injury really set him back just from practice time, losing practice time, coming back out and not necessarily being yourself just yet. So if that holds true, it's good for them. And it gives them more variety in coverages because the man coverage with he and Amos and Samerstill, and not just those guys, the other guys can play too. Igbenogany's had a really good summer, but the key for Lattimore will always be durability during the season. Can't answer that yet. Only know how he's looking so far. He does seem to be driving well, seems to be moving pretty well, but the key will be how he's moving during the season for sure. And then Witt was asked about Trey Amos, and someone said, it looked like he had a good day today. And his comment was, Trey has a good day every day. And I would agree with that. Listen, he's not perfect. He's going to give up a catch. Every cornerback does, but he is really good. And he's very, very patient. And I think that's something that has jumped out, and he made a couple plays later, or a couple plays today. I'll talk about that later. And then watching, and I keep talking about Zach Ertz, and I just think because it's impressive to watch him from the standpoint of how is he getting open all the time. One of the things that someone was saying that they feel like his footwork is better than it's ever been. He focuses a heavy amount on that. And it just allows him to create a little bit more separation, and not only a little bit more separation, a little bit more yards after the catch. So that's been something that's been noticeable this spring too. We're not talking like he's not going to be turned into Deebo Samuel after the catch or anything like that, but it's just another little part to his game that he can help with and maybe get a few more yards after the catch to get, instead of 9 yards, maybe you're getting 13 or 14. So just something to pay attention to for sure. It's really kind of someone like, as I've told you, he works on that stuff all the time. So he was an available target for Daniels on a number of throws again today. With McLaren and Noah Brown out, I think it's safe to say they need more from the receiver group. But also, as Cliff Kingsbury said, it pushes other guys into roles that they necessarily wouldn't have been in. Luke McCaffrey spending a lot of time outside instead of where inside, instead of going back and forth inside and outside. You have guys like Chris Moore trying to win a job, and Moore's got to do a better job holding on to the ball, to be honest. Then you have, Michael Gallup, you have KJ Osborne, guys getting more reps and looks because of that. And I think when they get McLaurin, eventually I will be here. Noah Brown is to me a wild card because it's the injury thing. Like, will he stay healthy? Because that's been the number one issue in his career. If he does, it gives them another weapon. If he doesn't, if he's in and out, then there's a little bit of trouble. Samuel can be the number 2 option, but I think that you need another receiver, like a true receiver, right? Deebo is a chess piece and can be a good one at that, but that's what you're going to need from there for sure. So, Moore, I brought up Moore. He had one today where I think it was Jaden hits him over the middle, off his hands, right to Trey Amos. Amos right with him, but he should have caught the ball, but he doesn't. Bounces off him. Amos gets it for the pick. And too often, like, you're not seeing the separation down the field. You're not seeing the connection all the time either. It hasn't been the smoothest of summers for the offense. I do think you can credit some of the defense for that. Like, some of these offensive guys are telling people, like, this defense is much improved. And I think that's obvious watching it for me this summer, for sure. That's been like maybe the biggest jump, the biggest thing that I've noticed this summer is that I think the defense will be better. Just, more depth up front, better coverage in the secondary. So that will help. And that's where I think it's going to make a big difference. Laramie Tunsil was out there early, wasn't out there later. Don't know what was going on there, but just thought I'd point out. It had, because of that, Andrew Wiley initially started off working at left guard and with Allegretti at right guard because, of course, Brandon Coleman out, and then Connelly at right tackle with Tunsil left tackle. Then Wiley eventually goes to left tackle, and Chris Paul was going in at left guard. Johnny Newton flashed a little bit today, and I brought him up the other day and just like, what's he been doing? Well, he flashed a little bit today. You saw some of that quickness. One of the things I've told you that they like for him that he's worked on his strength. Like, he was able to strengthen his legs this offseason as opposed to last offseason when he was rehabbing his 2 foot injuries and surgeries, right? So that makes a difference. Anytime it's why they feel good about Javon Kinlaw. Like, every time I talk to a coach or anybody about him, it's like, early in his career was the injuries. Like, whether or not he plays that way for them, that's their belief. It's why they gave him the deal they did. And, it's funny, this is a little aside. I've seen a few people, several people online or something saying, if they overpaid for Kinlaw, why wouldn't they overpay for Terry? Well, number one, what's your definition of an overpay? And maybe in some ways they may feel eventually they are overpaying for McLaurin, even if it's lower than what you think it should be. It's what the market thinks it should be, not what fans think the money is. Fans can be myopic about it. The team can't be. Anyways, with Kinlaw, his cap number is $5.3 million this year. If he plays well, you have him, and they're paying him for what they think he's going to do, not for what he did. Same thing for any player. You're paying him for what you think they're going to do. And that's why for McLaurin, it's been tricky. 32, 33 years old, what are you going to get out of that if you're paying him a certain amount? So for Kinlaw, 5.3 cap hit this year. It's like a little over 16 next year. If he plays well, 16.3 or whatever it is a pretty good bargain for a good defensive tackle. If he doesn't play well, then it's a slightly above market for sure, but it's only 1 year. So then you can be out of it. So it's not a prohibitive deal the way some others would be if you're talking about a bigger deal. But it's how they view it. You're paying for what they're going to do versus what they've done. So anyways, just want to point that out. But going back to Johnny Newton, saw some of the quickness today. And I think that's what they've wanted to see. This like Kinlaw, it's you're not rehabbing and you can work on your game. Haven't seen it consistently to this point with Newton, but did see it today. Got inside. Now these are, got inside Chris Paul one time, another backup got inside. So, but it was the quickness off the ball is what you want to see. And that was there today. So there you go. And sticking with the D line, I've told you this before, like there's a lot of options I think they have there. You can go big and get some pass rushers in there, but yet also not be small against the run. So like I saw one with Kinlaw and Eddie Goldman today with Jacob Martin on one side and Dietrich Wise on the other. So, not great pass rushers, but guys who can rush the passer, but also have some size too. So then you can go like you got another lineup with Von Miller, Deron Payne, Jacob Martin, and then Frankie Louvu as pass rushers. That's an obvious pass rush situation. In fact, there was one time, there's almost like a triangle of terror, right? Potentially. You have Von Miller on the outside as an edge. You have Deron Payne inside and splitting them in between Frankie Louvu. That's going to be the running backs matchup. So that's going to that's where the Von Miller stuff helps. And you get Payne and then Louvu would get one-on-ones in that situation. Which one can win? And for Louvu, it'd be against a running back. So I think that's something for sure to watch as well. Did watch Von Miller a few times. He got around Josh Connelly on one where you just see he can turn the corner. I think for Connelly, he's still getting used to how do you go about you have to, if you ever, like when I would coach basketball, you always tell kids, you reach with your feet, not your hands. You start reaching with your hand, you're going to be in trouble. And a few times a day, I saw him reaching with his hands. He's got the footwork. I think sometimes it's a matter of like trusting your feet and then trusting your technique and getting out there. I think that's when the game starts to slow down for him. And when you can start to anticipate a little bit more, that's when he'll be helped. That's why to me, it's a good help going against a guy like Connelly, going against a guy like Von Miller. He's not going against himself, but going against a guy like Von Miller will help him because listen, Dorrance Armstrong's getting him on that too. You've got to learn to just trust your feet, get the technique down, and how do you get out there? Again, he has the athleticism, he has the footwork, still getting used to it. And even Cliff Kingsbury said he's still kind of adjusting to things fundamentally on the right side, which I think has been obvious in camp. When you put him on the left side, it looks a little bit different. I saw Tyler Owens with a nice job in coverage against Deebo Samuel. I've told you before, they use Owens in the slot a lot just to see if he can cover. He's not a slot corner, but it gives you another option. If you have a safety who can come up and cover like that, it provides another option, another look, another variety, adds more variety to the defense. So in this one, nice job by him. Now, defends the fade ball. So what I like on there are a couple things from Tyler Owens. Patience. Deebo comes off the line, kind of stutter step, but Owens he's playing the fade. So it's very possible that after this much time, you kind of know they're going to throw the fade to Deebo out of that look, especially if you're getting man coverage. It's almost an automatic. So it's very possible maybe he knew them. I will still say he was patient, and then he used his length to make the play. Like Deebo did not get open again. And it wasn't so much about his speed. It was about the other parts. And the other parts to me matter a lot, because if you have the other parts, then you can get to the other, then you can use your speed or whatever it is. In this case, patience. So Deebo's little stutter step didn't affect him. He was still a yard ahead. And then the length. So you make it, he's a longer guy. So you got to make it where he's got to throw over you. And it just made it tough. And he defended the play very well because of that. Just a good job there by Tyler Owens. And so speaking of Deebo Samuel, he had another catch of the day. So this time was against corner Jonathan Jones. Just again, a fade route from Jaden Daniels. Really, really good ball. Another dime. So it's just another, that's Jaden throws those a lot, and it was a good one. The offense hasn't always looked as sharp as I think people would like. Again, is that because of defense or is it because of where the offense is at? We'll see as the games go. But on this one, just a really good connection for Daniels and Deebo Samuel. Not bad coverage by Jonathan Jones either. Just really good job with the throw. Trey Amos brought him up earlier. Deebo got him on a crossing pattern one time. I brought up the interception he had earlier. And then later after that where Deebo gets him, he did a really nice job against Luke McCaffrey. They don't have Christian McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey, a good job on, again, fade ball down the side, but Amos is right there, had him smothered. There was no chance of that. If Jayden had completed that one, you just like drop it and give him the MVP right now because he was not open. There was very little room on the sidelines. Did a good job. There was still maybe a yard or a couple yards there, not a lot, but a good job by Amos with positioning. And then again, using length, speed, all the stuff he does. Every time you talk to coach, the one word they use is patient. And he showed it again on that play. But just to, I would wish we could see him against Terry McLaurin this summer to get an even better feel for where he's at against the kind of guy that you need him to succeed against. And there you go. One of the fun things for training camp, and I'm, putting up a little video here, is watching. This was the last big day for fans here. So there's another military appreciation day, but the fans today was season ticket holders, last day for them. So Brian Robinson was playing catch with a young fan in the stands. And you can see him here. He ends up diving for a ball from the fans to catch it. Good interactions. I think that's the fun stuff. I think it's good for players to do that. I think it's good for the fans to do that. Every day there were several thousand people here. Just, it definitely adds energy. And, I think it's also when you see Jaden Daniels have to get bombarded by autograph requests, like it's a lot. So anyways, but I like the interaction with Robinson and the fan. Coordinators Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt both talked today. Kingsbury was very high on rookie receiver Jaylen Lane. He said he's very impressive, super, super talented. He brought up coachability, the route tree running. He also said there were some things that you couldn't see on film at Virginia Tech that he's feeling on the field now. And I would agree, like at Tech, there wasn't a lot of variety to what they asked him to do. There are a lot of horizontal routes just to get his speed and a lot of stuff, just to use his speed. And some vertical go balls, but they're using it more on more route trees or more of the route tree with him here. And I think it's why he could be a big help. He does not look like, if you remember, somebody asked me about, could he be a Terry McLaurin? Well, McLaurin as a rookie looked really good. Like you could tell in training camp that McLaurin was different. Like he was just different. I don't see that with Jaylen Lane at this point, but I do see someone who can help them. And I brought up sometimes like the details of the route running, still getting there, but I think he is definitely going to be a guy who can provide some help. And if nothing else immediately, it would be as a punt returner. And that's a good place to start because that's going to help the offense too. And I think he can provide a jolt in that area for sure. And the other thing that Kingsbury said was he was asked about Sam Hartman, said he's been up and down. Now Hartman had shoulder surgery in the wintertime, like after the season, on his right shoulder, obviously his throwing shoulder. So he was a little bit limited as to what he could do in the spring. He said he hurt it in that Jets scrimmage or exhibition game in the summertime. That's when he heard he had some AC issues, had to get some of the bone cleaned up, etc. So it was limited in the spring. So Kingsbury felt like maybe he's still getting his rhythm back. And, you start to see it sometimes, but there's some definitely not there yet. And that's going to be an interesting one because he and Josh Johnson are fighting for that number 3 quarterback spot. Now, just because you say number 3 doesn't mean they're going to be on the roster. When they say third quarterback, it could very well be one of those guys on the practice squad. I don't know that if Hartman wins the job, that wins the third job. I don't think it's automatic that he's on the regular roster because I don't know that anybody would pick him up, to be honest. So I think that's what you have to always keep in mind. And they're going to be spots where they're going to want to keep guys who can help them right now. And you can have Hartman and or Josh Johnson on the practice squad for sure. So then finally, Joe Witt talked about him. And one of the things I like about Witt is just he's very honest about it. You can ask him, like, hey, what did you work on for yourself? And he will point to things. And one of the things he said, it's almost one, he wants to find ways to use guys better. Like he brought up, like he felt he used Jeremy Chin and Frankie Louvu well last year. Like the way he moved around, he said he wants to do that more for all 11. So, and you can see that now. Like you can see what they're doing with that defensive front because of what they have in their coverage. And like he's a press man guy. They're playing a lot of press man. I think they're going to play a lot of that this season. That would just be a pretty good guess based on practice, based on skill set, and based on what they could do then up front off of that. But the other thing he said that he could be better about, what did he say? Like how do you put it? Make sure you're doing what's right, not trying to prove that you're right. So in other words, listening to your coaches, letting them coach and then listening to them, installing the scheme, working on that, but listen to your coaches. And again, you're not about trying to defend yourself. It's about trying to do what's right. So there you go. I think that's all I have, folks. Oh, and by the way, one other coach I was talking to him because like, what's important here? And he brought up like what he's learned from like Kingsbury and Dan Quinn. He said, it's not about the scheme. It's not about the X's and O's. It's about the people. I think Quinn does a really good job of connecting with players. I think, and when you have that, players trust what you're doing with them, and and you're listening to them and developing a relationship versus just like, hey, here's my scheme, go do it. I think this is why, like, when people talk about, oh, the guy's got a great scheme, well, it goes way deeper than that if you want to be a good head coach. And I think that's what some people have seen here. Anyway, folks, that's it from me. I will be back on Wednesday with another episode, wrapping up the joint practice between the Commanders and the Patriots. So appreciate you tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.